So let's start with the lows for Bitcoin, the crypto crash right now.
Okay, so right now, crypto getting a little bit of a bid as the dollar has fallen. Per the chart, we're in this bigger wedge pattern. So again, if I zoom out, this is pretty remarkable wedge pattern where you basically had the all-time high down sloping trend line. If we can break above that, it gives you a little bit of a short-term short squeeze on Bitcoin. Overall, I don't see it lasting for very long, and I ultimately see more downside. Right now, my high-end target on Bitcoin is around the 12 to 13,000 level, which would put us right down here at this pivot. Right now, we're still hovering around that 2017 all-time high before the last bear market. But I do think eventually it gets pushed below this level and collapses down to, again, 12 to 13,000.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Gareth Soloway forecasting the crash with Bitcoin, as well as his take on the economy and where we're headed in the next few months. Soloway has seen that inflation is so high now that no one can stop it. He believes that Bitcoin is also headed for a massive dip and can see a coming scenario that is well below his previous prediction of 12 to 13,000. Soloway says there is no good endgame in the market, and in the long term, he does see many economies getting destroyed by what's happening. He believes that investors need to be made aware that there will be a massive reset where the dollar will collapse. Let's listen to this interview with Gareth Soloway as he gives his investment advice for Bitcoin during the collapse and predicts where the crypto and stock market is headed in the next few weeks. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
I know a lot of people have heard the headline of, like, Gareth says it could go as low as 3,500. That's kind of a worst case scenario for me, where if we really see, the financial markets collapse, we know that Bitcoin kind of follows the financial markets. It hasn't become a kind of a goldish type thing yet. Then you could be looking at a $3,500 target. Long term, I love Bitcoin. I think there's a huge place in the economy, in the global economy for it. But again, cycles are cycles, and we can't deny the fact that, number one, we're in a bear cycle. Number two, this is the first bear cycle that you haven't had Fed printing of money, which means it probably is going to be a worse bear cycle than past bear cycles. And we haven't even corrected 80% yet, which is what the past cycles did. Where I get my $3,500 target, if you compare the .com era to the last couple of years in crypto, where you saw Dogecoin and SHIB and I mean these crazy meme coins, and some of these coins going up thousands and thousands and thousands of percent. If that was the equivalent of what happened in the .com era, and Amazon in the .com era collapsed 95% before going up tens of thousands of percentage points, then you have to think maybe a 95% correction in Bitcoin could occur, in which case you're looking at 3,500. So you're looking at the June right here. But I think you have to kind of keep in mind that this could be a bearish pattern. If we go to the parallel channel, right, we put a trend line below these lows here, and we drag this up, you basically are creating this. And so when I'm talking about maybe a breakout from here, you probably would head as high as this level here, which is around 25,000, but you're still in a sideways channel, which from this drop, or you could look at a bigger drop, it's still bearish as of now. It hasn't flipped to bullish yet on Bitcoin.
Soloway is amazed that Bitcoin hasn't conveyed more strength in the market. This is because Bitcoin usually does the risk minimum at least 2 times when the stock market rallies. This hasn't happened because Bitcoin has floated up due to the fear of investors who have already lost money in crypto. Soloway believes that it's important to recognize that the current long-term pattern is very bearish. He sees that Bitcoin has the ability to go down significantly in the next 30 days.
So there's 2 things that tells you. First of all, the stock market has been more volatile than Bitcoin. I never thought I'd say that, but that's been the case. And then number 2 is that this quiet periods are the periods before big moves. So you know something big is coming. Think about the eye of a storm, where it's very quiet, but then when you come out of the eye of the storm, it gets real crazy. So at some point, something is going to trigger here, either a big move up or a big move down. Especially over the last week or so in Bitcoin, I was commenting on how the stock market was really falling until today. The dollar was really shooting up, and crypto really has gone sideways. So I agree with you. That's a short-term bullish indicator. Again, I wouldn't look at that as a longer-term signal of a bottom yet,
Sure.
but short-term, absolutely. And that kind of gives us a play where where if we look at this here, and let me just erase this trend line, but you have this kind of channel, and look at where we've been hovering, right at the lows. And if you look here, we bounced here off of this line, we bounced. Now we've been hovering here, and it's held up. So maybe we have one more trigger to go up to about 25,000. Then the question is, can we break above that? And that's going to be the big question there. But I wouldn't, the way it's been acting, it's been very, very healthy for Bitcoin to be holding up while the stocks have been going down and while the dollar's been going up. I'm more of a swing trader on Ethereum at this point. But yeah, I mean, Ethereum, it's still well above these lows from June. It looks like it held this retrace. And this is just a great example of technicals where you had this, you can see pivot high, pulled back, pivot high, pulled back, broke out. And we know that when you break out, charts tend to want to come back to home base. Where was that breakout? Well, guess what? It was right there. It came right there and has kind of held up relatively well. Now, if we rally up, this downsloping trend line becomes the resistance point. Now, with the merge, I mean, it's kind of been a little bit of a crazier analysis point on the merge, but right now, again, you're holding support on Ethereum, and it wouldn't shock me to see us go up and test this trend line up here. I always say this to people is that, like, emotion, like, if you're in a bear market, that's the most powerful thing. Like, if we were in a bull market, then it probably would have gone to all-time highs, right? Or would have, but you have to recognize what type of market you're trading through, where instead of a buy the dip market, it's a sell the rip market. So you get these gifts of these big moves and you have to be selling into them. I've kind of been in the more bearish camp lately with the dollar. I think, number one, it's gotten way overdone. I also think that these other central banks, and we're starting to see it, are kind of in a position of saying, hey, listen, we need to kind of stabilize our currencies against the US dollar. So number one, I think they're talking to the US Fed and kind of coordinating. Like, I'm sure that when the Bank of England made this decision of what they ended up doing in the overnight, or last night in the overnight for me, they did talk to the Federal Reserve and let them know. So I do think there's some communication between central banks. But I think for the most part, I'm still a long-term bear on the dollar. I just think that in this kind of period where we're looking at a global recession, where you have Russia invading Ukraine, maybe China and Taiwan, the dollar is still king dollar. And so it's still going to be the strongest, even though longer term, 10 years from now, I do think the power of the dollar does wane significantly.
So you're not in this camp that Bitcoin is going to become the world reserve currency, the dollar is going down, China is going to take over. That's not how bearish you are on the dollar.
So not in the near term. I actually do think that in the longer term. So I don't think Bitcoin is going to be the reserve currency. I look at Bitcoin as more like the digital gold. So I think it becomes more of that commodity. So I think that's where you see Bitcoin go. I actually do think the digital yuan does eventually become the reserve currency. It just takes so much time. I mean, these countries are so addicted to everything being run in US dollars that it takes just a long time for it to switch over. But I do think it's a process that will happen. And I do think as that switch happens to another reserve currency, remember, all these countries hold trillions, well, maybe not trillions, but at least hundreds of billions of dollars because it's the reserve currency, and they have to do all these transactions. So as it wanes as the reserve currency, these countries won't have to hold dollars as much, and you'll see more and more dumping of the dollar on the open market. And that alone will create a situation where the dollar does decline. So I would say near term, you respect the dollar. I think you're going to have pullbacks, but it stays strong. Longer term, I am a bear on the dollar.
Soloway believes that Bitcoin is not at the bottom, but he compares Bitcoin's future as the blockchain equivalent of Amazon, which at one point fell 95%, which would bring Bitcoin back to $3,500. If Bitcoin gets written down, it's hard to tell if it's worthwhile to dump that position to buy lower. He doesn't recommend exiting the market because a bull run might immediately start and the risk of investors missing out on profit is too high. Soloway advises investors to choose the path they're comfortable with, but recommends to be sure to dollar cost average gradually and to space out time between each buy. What do you guys think about Gareth Soloway's prediction for Bitcoin? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.